To cover these and many other of data, you might want to store or manipulate. Kotlin uses variable of different types. There are many types of variables, and we can even invent our own types as well. But for now, you will look at the most commonly used Kotlin types, and these will cover just about every situation that we are likely to run into. The best way to explain types of truth numbers of examples. We have already discussed the hypothetical unread message variable. This variable is, of course, a number. On the other hand, a hypothetical contact name variable will hold the characters or letters that make up a contact's name. The type that holds a regular number is called an int, an abbreviation of integer. So it's like this, integer. And the type that holds name-like data is called string. Here is the list of types variable that we will discuss in this course. This is the first is integer. Okay. So the second is string. The third is long. It's better to write long under the int because long is number as well. The float is the number as well. The double the double and float is the same thing. So I first want to explain, as you know, integer is just a standard number variable. Long is as the name suggests, long data types can be used whenever larger numbers are needed. A long variable can store numbers up to, I want to copy that because it's so long. Logically, long is for that if you have more than a very long integer, then integers have excess of 2 billions. But in longs, the situation is not the same. So long can store, I want right here, long variables can store up to that much variables long can store, but the integer can store less than long and can up to 2 billion. But there is a one variable as well, which is short, can store less than integer. We have a float variable as well here. The float variable is used for floating point numbers, that is, numbers where the precisions beyond the decimal point. As the fractional part of a number takes memory space, just a whole number part. The range of a number that is possible in a float variable is therefore decreased compared to non-floating point numbers. So unless our variable will use the extra precision, float will not be our data type choice. So we have a double data type as well. Double when the precision in a float variable is not enough, we have double. So double can store more variable than float. Here we have boolean as well. Boolean, which boolean can store two variables. We will using plenty of booleans throughout this course. The boolean variant variable type can either either true or false. Okay, so true or false, nothing else. the booleans can be true or false. So booleans answer questions such as is the contact a friend? Are there any new messages? If yes, then the boolean variable has to true. If no, the false. So boolean variables is just variable type can be either true or false, nothing else. We have a character as well, which is char here, and the char character stores a single alphanumeric character. It's not going to change the world on its own, but it could be useful if we put lots of them together. So char is like one alphabetic number or one character that uses by ASCII numbers. I will discuss what is the ASCII numbers as well, like A, B, or just the character code, char code, like this. So character has very less amount of memory to use, allocate. So if you want long messages, you need to use string. We have a string as well. String can be used to store any keyboard character. It's similar to a char, but of almost any length. Anything from a contact's name to an entire book can be stored in a single string. We will be using strings regularly, including this lecture. This is the class after the string class here. Class, this is the most powerful data type, and we have already discussed it a little. We will take a deep dive into later of our Udemy course. And the last I want to talk about is array. Array, this type comes in lots of different flavors and is key for handling and organizing large sets of data. We will explore the variations of array in later of our course. So just be to be mind, arrays can be strings or array, characters of array, booleans of array, doubles of array, and arrays can be used any object and multiply use them inside of them. So we will use array later of our course with good explanation about. So arrays is not hard, but it's good to explain by another lecture. I want now to declare and initialize some variable here. Before we can use a variable type that we just discussed, we must declare them so that the compiler knows they exist. And we must also initialize them so they hold a value. For each of the variable types in Kotlin, such as integer, integer, float, string, boolean, there are two keywords that we can use to declare them: val or var here. The val type is for storing values that are decided by the programmer before the application starts or during the initialization and cannot be changed again during the execution. The var type is for values that can be manipulated and altered through the execution. Therefore, the val type is only readable here. In technical terms, it's known as the immutable object type. The var type is readable and writable, and this is called mutable. So I want to mention about that. Immutable, and val is immutable and var is mutable. So var can be changed or read, but val cannot be changed, but it can be read from application. So writing code that attempts to change the value of val during execution will cause Android Studio to show an error and code will not compile. There are also rules for var that we'll explore it later. There are two ways that we can declare an initialized string type first by using val. So I want to delete these explanations for testing our explaining our val, how to use val here. So we want to create a string name that uses TechBeans Academy, carries TechBeans Academy inside of string. So val we're gonna use val. So because and we are using val, as we mentioned earlier, val is immutable. We can read the val, but after assigning the val, we can't change it. So it's like a CDR. You can write it once, but you cannot change it later. So val contact name here, and after two dots here, and type string. So we are creating the string variable here and typing our TechBeans Academy here. So in the present this line of code, a new val variable named contact name and of the type is string is declared and now hosts the Gordon TechBeans Academy value. Furthermore, the TechBeans Academy text is not the only value that contact name can hold for the duration of the application's executions. You could attempt to change it with the following line of code, like contact name equals like techbeans.com. As you can see here, now val the integrated developed environment introduces us that val cannot be reassigned. So the val variables you can assign once. Val can be assigned once and cannot be changed. Okay, so as you can see, we cannot compile it because it throws errors. We cannot reassign val here. But here is what we will see if you paste. Of course, we cannot change it, so we deleted it. But if we change this val to var, we can change our string variable here, like contact name equals techbeans.com. As you see here, there is no error thrown, so we reassigned our TechBeans Academy to techbeans.com using var. So if we use val, this cannot be assigned here. This code, we use var to declare string type, and this time we successfully changed the value held by contact name to techbeans.com. The point to take away here is that if the variable does not need to change during the execution of the application, then we should use val, because the compiler can help to protect us from the making mistakes. Now let's declare and initialize some different variables, like some vals or using vals or some vars. So let me delete this. So let's create an integer firstly, because integer are our lovely variable here, val, like let's write episodes of The Walking Dead. So here, and we're gonna pair double dots and paste integer, and like The Walking Dead was 10 seasons and I think it was 10, so 100 here. As you can see, our variable successfully declared. And we can declare p-value as well with float, of course, because we cannot declare the p-value with integer. It will throw an exception, as you can see here. Why? The floating point literal does not conform to the expected type int. So in order to do that, we have to change to 10, or we have to make it float. And as you can see here, there is an error as well. So if you want to declare a float number here, you need to add f after your variable. So we want 10 here, 100 here, and change it to int. We will declare float as well. Float is best example for using float is the p-value. So p-value is 3.14. So let's assign a p-value to our p variable. Val p float equals 3.14f. And as you can see here, we get a p-value here. And let's create another long. So var like what we can do, kilometers per hour for light speed. Oops, val light speed and long. So here we can assign it like very long integers as well, like this. It will not throw an exception for us. Now I want to show you that why it's not thrown exception, because long has more. As you can see here, these are the both integer numbers, but long can hold more variables than integer. So it uses more random access memory in your device. As you can see, we cannot assign that because the integer literal does not conform the expected type integer. So this is the long. So we will return to back, and we have boolean as well. So val like let's write Android is nice, and we gonna use boolean for assigning a true or false. Boolean equals true. Yes, Android is nice operating system. And let's create an boolean as well. Well, is learning good, and we assign boolean here. Boolean, this is true as well. Learning is good. And let's go. Let's assign now an string literal here. String. What we can name our website, and string here equals techbeans.com. So we can assign string literals here, or we can use like another string we can use var our Udemy website string equals udemy.com here. So now let's try changing these variables here. So we can change our website here. So reassign it like our website equals google.com. As you can see here, we cannot reassign our website because our website as declared with vals. So as I mentioned earlier, the val variables cannot be reassigned val variables can be assigned once when application starts and then cannot be changed. So if we change val to var, then our problem will be successfully handled here. So notice that in this code, I declared variables as val when they are unlikely to change and as var when it's likely they will change. As you develop your own app, which we will make it a wide variety of applications, we will develop it. You can guess whether they use val or var, and if necessary, you can change a var variable to a val variable here. Or the other went around. Also, in the preceding code, the string types are initialized with the value between speech marks, but integer, float, long, and booleans are not. Saving keystrokes with interface. Kotlin was designed to be as sufficient as possible. It was one of the aims of the JetBrains team to let the developers get as much done with a little code as possible. We will see examples of this throughout the Kotlin language. If you have previously coded in another language, especially Java, you will notice a significant reduction in typing. So as you see the starting of our course, I accidentally putting this end line code of Java. So in Kotlin you can use that for like similarity, but it's not necessary. It's best to don't make this inversely. So Kotlin can often infer the type you need from the context, and if this is the case, then you don't need to write the type explicitly like this here. So we explicitly mentioned that we want string here, but we can declare, as you can see here in these examples, we declare the techbeans.com that using string type called our website is declared and initialized using techbeans.com here. If you think about it for a moment, it must be a string. Fortunately, this is obvious to the Kotlin compiler too. We could and should improve presenting a line of code using type interface, such as within this code we can like var Android users equals Java and Kotlin. As you can see here, without passing this string, the Kotlin interpreter is know that this is the string type because this is double here. And if we put this integer, write this integer here, this will throw an exception here because type mismatch. This is the string, but we writing that this we want integer. This is not going to happen, so we can the variables, string variables or any variable can be declared without mentioning the object type here. We must remember, however, that although we haven't specified string explicitly, it is still a string type and only a string type. If we try to do something unsuitable string type, then we will get an error, as we explained extensively. So we will see more types interface with variables in the next two lectures, and in later chapters we will use the type interface with more complex types such as classes, arrays, and collections. Type interface will also become a good time saver by making our code shorter and more manageable. As you can see here, there is a huge differences between this string and this string. So imagine you assigning 100 strings in your code. This will be a lifesaver for programmers, of course. So it might be sound obvious, but it's worth mentioning that if you're declaring variable for initialization, later the type interference is not possible, like this, like var, computer model here. As you can see here, there's interpreter thrown as an exception here. So the variable must either have a type annunciation or to be initialized. So the line of code will cause an error and application will not compile. When using the type interference, it will usually be always what type of variable is, but if there is every any doubt, you can select a variable in Android Studio by pressing Shift, Control, and P simultaneously to get handy on current hint. So to getting Shift, I want Shift plus Control and plus P here. Let's press that Shift Control P here. So as you can see, nobody here. So Shift Control P is selecting a line here. Selecting line. Shift Control P. No type, no body, and this thrown as an exception here. Let me drink water, please. So omitting this oscillational string int or colon type isn't going to type much on its own. So let's learn how to make expression with our variables by combining them with operators in the next lecture.